The most manipulative people aren't monsters in the shadows. They're the friends, partners, and colleagues who seem to know exactly what you feel, yet never truly care. Backed by psychology's dark triad, they study your empathy, not to connect, but to exploit. Why do they target people with the greatest capacity for love and trust? In this investigation, you'll see how the darkest minds turn human vulnerability into their weapon, and how to recognize the silent warning signs before it's too late. Psychologists use the term dark triad to describe a cluster of personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy that often drive manipulative behavior. People with these traits do not lack social awareness. In fact, studies show they can read others' emotions with unsettling precision. But there is a critical difference between understanding someone's feelings and actually caring about them. Cognitive empathy allows a person to analyze and predict what someone else might feel. Emotional empathy is the capacity to share in those feelings. Manipulative individuals typically score low on emotional empathy, but high on cognitive empathy. They know what hurts, what pleases, and what motivates the people around them, but they do not experience those emotions themselves. This split is not simply a matter of choice or upbringing. Brain imaging studies reveal that people high in psychopathic or narcissistic traits show less activation in regions like the amygdala and ventromedial prefrontal cortex when confronted with the suffering of others. Yet, when asked to deliberately take another's perspective, these same individuals can activate those neural pathways, almost as if flipping a switch. This ability to simulate emotion without feeling it is what makes their charm so convincing. In the early stages of a relationship, whether romantic, professional, or familial, a manipulator might seem attentive, even empathetic. But beneath the surface, every interaction is transactional. Relationships are viewed as opportunities for gain, status, money, admiration, or control. The warmth and attentiveness are calculated, not genuine. Dr. Paulhus and Dr. Williams first outlined the dark triad in 2002, noting that not every manipulator is a full-blown psychopath, but many display shades of these traits. For those on the receiving end, the effect can be disorienting. It is easy to believe that someone who understands your feelings so well must truly care. But for the manipulator, empathy is a tool, never a bridge. Anna, a survivor of workplace manipulation, recalls how her manager always seemed to know when she was anxious or insecure. He would offer just the right words of encouragement, only to use her gratitude later as leverage. The praise felt genuine, but over time she realized it was always tied to a request or a demand. Looking back, Anna describes the experience as being studied, not supported. This is the engine that drives manipulative people. They do not miss emotional cues. They collect them, catalog them, and use them to shape the world around them. True connection is never the goal. Control is. And for those caught in their orbit, the distinction between being understood and being cared for can mean the difference between safety and exploitation. No one is immune to manipulation, but some people are more likely to be targeted than others. Manipulators are skilled at identifying vulnerability, sometimes in seconds. They scan for signs of loneliness, recent loss, or a hunger for approval. For Anna, that vulnerability began early. Growing up, she learned that love was something to be earned, not given freely. Praise from her parents was rare and always tied to achievement. By the time she entered the workforce, Anna craved validation from authority figures. Her manager seemed to sense this immediately. Attachment wounds, gaps left by inconsistent or conditional love in childhood, can quietly shape a person's boundaries. Studies show that people with anxious or insecure attachment styles are more likely to tolerate red flags. They fear abandonment, so they work harder to please, even when it means ignoring their own discomfort. Manipulators recognize this pattern. They offer what feels like unconditional support at first, then gradually make their affection contingent on compliance. Empathy, often seen as a strength, can also become a liability in the wrong hands. Research into workplace bullying and romantic scams finds that highly empathetic, agreeable people are often chosen as targets. They are more likely to give others the benefit of the doubt, to rationalize bad behavior, and to absorb blame rather than confront conflict. This does not mean kindness is a flaw. It means that, without strong boundaries, empathy can be twisted into self-sacrifice. Trauma history is another powerful risk factor. Survivors of childhood abuse or neglect may unconsciously accept chaos and unpredictability as normal. They become experts at adapting to shifting moods and walking on eggshells, which can make them especially resilient, but also more tolerant of mistreatment. Manipulators exploit this resilience, pushing limits to see how much a person will endure. Repeated exposure to betrayal or emotional harm can dull alarm bells, making it harder to recognize when something is wrong. Situational stress amplifies all these risks. Major life changes, a breakup, job loss, illness, or moving to a new city can leave anyone feeling isolated or off balance. Manipulators often appear during these windows, offering comfort or a sense of stability. The promise of rescue is seductive when the ground feels unsteady, but support quickly turns into control, and the line between help and harm blurs. These vulnerabilities are not weaknesses. They are the normal scars and needs that come from being human. What matters is recognizing the patterns: a need for validation, difficulty saying no, a tendency to shoulder blame, or feeling unworthy of healthy love. By understanding these risk factors, people can begin to protect themselves, not by shutting down empathy, but by pairing it with self-respect and clear boundaries. Anna's story is not rare. For many, the path into a manipulative relationship begins with the simple, universal longing to be seen, valued, and safe. Manipulation rarely begins with threats or criticism. More often, it starts with a dazzling rush of attention that feels like winning the lottery. Love bombing is the calculated art of making someone feel uniquely chosen, deeply valued, and swept up in a whirlwind of connection. For Anna, her manager's approach was never romantic, yet the effect was just as intoxicating. In her first weeks on the job, he singled her out for praise in team meetings, sent late-night emails filled with encouragement, and made promises of fast-track promotions. Co-workers called her the favorite. She felt seen in a way she'd always longed for. This intensity isn't accidental. Research on cult recruitment and high-control groups describes a similar pattern. The new recruit is showered with compliments, invited to exclusive gatherings, and told they have a special role to play. The goal is to lower defenses, create a sense of destiny, and make the target believe they've finally found where they belong. In romantic relationships, love bombing often looks like daily texts, lavish gifts, and talk of soulmates within days or weeks. In the workplace, it's private lunches, informal mentorship, and a steady stream of validation that feels like a lifeline. The brain responds to this flood of attention with a surge of dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals released during early romantic attraction or intense friendship. It's not just flattery, it's a physiological high. But beneath the surface, love bombing is a hook. The manipulator crafts an idealized version of themselves and the relationship, knowing that the more attached the target becomes, the easier it will be to steer their behavior later. Studies on grooming show that this phase often peaks within the first few weeks, when the target is most vulnerable to suggestion and least likely to question motives. Anna remembers feeling grateful for every compliment, every promise of advancement. It felt like a reward for her hard work and loyalty. But the praise always came with a subtle expectation, an extra project, a weekend email, a request to keep certain conversations private. Each favor felt small at first, but over time, the line between support and control began to blur. Love bombing is effective because it feels like genuine connection, but its true purpose is to create dependency, making it harder to pull away when the warmth fades. The warning sign isn't just intensity. It's intensity that comes too fast, with strings attached. When admiration feels overwhelming or too good to be true, it's worth asking, who benefits from your devotion, and at what cost? Anna's sense of belonging at work did not fade overnight. It was chipped away, almost invisibly, through a series of small, calculated moves. Her manager, once so generous with praise, began questioning the loyalty of her closest colleagues. He would ask in a low voice, "Are you sure you can trust them with sensitive information?" At first, it sounded like concern, but the pattern grew familiar. Friendly lunches with coworkers were met with raised eyebrows. He would say, "I thought you were on my team," half joking. Invitations to after-work gatherings became rare, sometimes because Anna canceled herself, worried she would seem disloyal if she went. These early loyalty tests rarely arrive as ultimatums. Instead, they slip into conversation as gentle warnings. Not everyone wants to see you succeed. You know, some people here are jealous of what you and I have accomplished. Over time, Anna found herself justifying missed outings to friends, feeling guilty for even considering a weekend away. Her manager encouraged a sense of exclusivity, framing their connection as unique. No one else gets it like we do. Isolation does not always look like doors slamming shut. Sometimes it is a slow narrowing of options. The manipulator might question the motives of a partner's friends and say, "I do not think they really respect you," or suggest family members are holding them back. In workplaces, it can be as subtle as assigning projects that require long hours, making outside commitments hard to keep. In families, it is the parent who insists, "After all we have done for you, you owe us your time." Experts in coercive control warn that these patterns are among the earliest and most reliable warning signs. The language is often the same. "If you really cared, you would put us first." "Why do you need anyone else when you have me?" These phrases are not just about affection, they are about control. Each time Anna canceled a plan or declined an invitation, her world shrank a little more. The circle tightened, and her dependency on her manager deepened. She began to question the intentions of those who once supported her, trusting instead the person who demanded her loyalty above all else. This erosion of support is rarely recognized as isolation while it is happening. It feels like devotion, like the natural result of a special bond. But the effect is the same. The target is left with fewer allies, less perspective, and a growing sense that escape would mean betrayal. By the time Anna realized how alone she had become, the patterns of control were already set. The dependency trap had quietly closed, making the next stage of manipulation far more difficult to resist. Gaslighting begins with language that unravels a person's self-trust. In the middle of a tense meeting, Anna's manager leaned across the table and said the conversation never happened and that Anna must be remembering it wrong. words landed like a fog, clouding her memory and making her question what she knew. Gaslighting works by erasing the victim's sense of reality, one denial at a time. Over weeks, Anna found herself replaying events in her mind, searching for proof that she was not imagining things. When she raised a missed deadline, her manager replied that she was too sensitive and that everyone else had understood the plan. Each phrase was not just a disagreement. It was a calculated effort to make Anna doubt her own perception. Clinical studies show repeated gaslighting can lead to anxiety, depression, and symptoms that mirror post-traumatic stress. Victims often become isolated inside their own minds, unable to trust even their clearest memories. Blame shifting is woven in. When Anna finally pushed back, her manager accused her of creating drama, insisting that if she were not so emotional, they would not have these problems. The blame slides away from the manipulator and settles on the victim. Over time, Anna's confidence eroded. She stopped confiding in coworkers, worried she would sound irrational. This is the hidden damage of gaslighting, not just confusion, but a slow, steady erosion of self-belief, setting the stage for deeper dependency and control. The most confounding part of a manipulative relationship is not always the cruelty or the lies. It is the powerful urge to stay even when every rational part of you wants to leave. Behavioral psychologists have a name for this: intermittent reinforcement. The pattern works like a slot machine. Rewards, affection, praise, apologies come at unpredictable intervals, never when you expect them. The brain's reward system, wired for learning and survival, responds to this uncertainty with a surge of dopamine. Each unexpected moment of kindness, after a stretch of coldness or criticism, lights up the same neural circuits that make gambling addictive. This is called reward prediction error. The greater the surprise, the bigger the dopamine spike. Survivor B describes the sensation as both hope and dread. She remembers checking her phone dozens of times each morning, desperate for a kind word, terrified of silence. On good days, the relief was overwhelming, enough to erase the memory of every bad day that came before. But those highs became rarer, and the lows stretched longer. She tried harder, believing that if she could just do everything right, the warmth would return. Instead, she found herself trapped in a cycle of craving and disappointment. What looks like devotion from the outside is often just the brain's desperate attempt to recapture fleeting moments of safety. It is not weakness or lack of willpower. It is conditioning. The very mechanism that helps humans learn and adapt can, in the wrong hands, become a cage. Manipulation rarely announces itself with a single dramatic gesture. More often, it reveals its pattern through small, repeating cues. Experts in coercive control and psychological aggression point to a handful of warning signs that, when they cluster together, should prompt serious reflection. First, intensity that moves too fast. If someone quickly floods you with praise, affection, or promises, especially before trust has been earned, that rush is a signal, not a guarantee of genuine connection. Second, attempts to separate you from friends, family, or colleagues. Subtle comments about your support system, discouraging outside contact, or making you feel guilty for spending time elsewhere are classic isolation tactics. Third, denial of your reality. You find yourself second-guessing memories, apologizing for things you did not do, or hearing that you are too sensitive or misremembering events. That is not healthy disagreement. That is gaslighting. Fourth, responsibility always lands at your feet. If every conflict ends with you being blamed, and the other person never takes ownership for their words or actions, this is a pattern of blame shifting. Finally, unpredictable mood swings. Sudden changes from warmth to coldness, affection to criticism, or approval to withdrawal keep you on edge and eager to win back favor. These unpredictable shifts are designed to destabilize and to keep you seeking approval. These red flags are not isolated quirks. They are the common language of manipulation. Even one recurring sign is reason to pause and seek outside perspective. Recognizing these cues early is the first step toward safety. Today, manipulation is easier than ever. Research shows digital relationships amplify psychological control, making red flags harder to spot. As boundaries blur, the cost is measured in shattered trust and unseen trauma. Protecting yourself starts with knowledge, not suspicion. In a world built on connection, the real power lies in refusing to surrender your empathy. Stay aware, stay connected, and trust that your instincts exist for a reason.